You can graduate with a perfect 4.0 GPA and still end up totally unemployed, living in your parents' basement. Let's talk about why. Welcome to Edu Steps, powered by Laddering Your Success, the podcast for purpose builders. Look, nobody is questioning your grades, but the rules of the game have completely changed in 2026. If you think a piece of paper guarantees you a paycheck, you're setting yourself up for a brutal awakening. Today, we're talking about the single skill you need to start learning this summer that will actually pay off later. If you refuse to let a standard GPA define your worth or your future, type more than my GPA in the comments right now. Let's unlock the truth. Before we do that, let me introduce our guests, or our squad rather, let me say, founder of Laddering Your Success, Festus Moye. Festus, how you doing today?
Doing excellent, man. Doing excellent. Ready to get into this great episode. We got a phenomenal episode for the parents and students today.
Absolutely, absolutely. And of course, the doctor, the doctorate, the doctor in the house, Dr. Jamar Crawford. How you doing today, Dr. J?
Hey, I'm doing good. Thank you guys for having me.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for joining us and blessing us with your presence, man. So let's start off by talking about the B, right? A comprehensive study by the National Association of Colleges and Employers found that employers rank attributes like teamwork, communication, and problem-solving skills significantly higher than a candidate's GPA alone when making hiring decisions. So, Socrates famously said, "The only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing." When you live strictly inside the school system, you begin to think your entire identity is wrapped up in your report card. That's a trap. Let's talk about two students. Student A graduated with a flawless 4.0 GPA, but spent 4 years completely isolated, never networked, never learned how to build deep, meaningful professional human relationships. Student B graduated with a 3.1 GPA, but spent their time building authentic connections, learning mentorship dynamics, discovering what values and principles anchored them. 10 years later, student A is struggling to clear an entry-level interview panel, while student B is running a company. Remember, information will get you hired, but adaptability and character will get you promoted. Who are you being when the test sheets are turned over? So let's go over, I got a question for the squad here. When a student realizes that their entire sense of self-worth has been manufactured by the school grades, how do they begin to discover their true foundational character?
I think that's the thing, is that so much is put on students, and the fact that high school graduation is the American rite of passage. And so what ends up happening is you got to get the GPA so you could graduate from high school, and that's the rite of passage. And if you're a more prestigious family, then graduating from a particular type of school is the rite of passage. And I think the big thing we have to start looking at is, what does success mean to me? Right? And constantly redefine that as we grow and as we get in different situations, so that we know what success means to us and we're not comparing ourselves to others.
I love that point right there. Not comparing yourself to others. I think that is so profound, in the sense that, as I mentioned in the intro, when you live in that siloed environment where everything is dictated by your grades, you have to think about that. You do learn a lot of discipline, right? Staying up late to study, waking up early. You learn a lot of discipline, but it's a very individualized environment when you're doing that. You don't really get an opportunity. I never mentioned anything about actually having study groups or engaging with your teachers, other teachers that teach the same thing, just to broaden, challenge yourself, expand your horizons. So I think that's really key for a lot of these students. It's student A, as I mentioned earlier, right? So student A with the perfect 4.0, don't really know how to engage. What is one of our mentors, Cleo Franklin, says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And that alone, that quote just kind of goes to show, if you got to go together, you got to have certain skills to be able to take people with you, to lead, right? So Just one of those things to think about. Now, let's talk about the no, right? Understanding the how. Another stat for us. Data compiled by the Federal Reserve indicates that roughly half of all college students do not work in their direct major or field of study within 5 years of graduating, emphasizing the critical value of versatile, transferable skills over highly specific technical knowledge. When we started laddering your success about 7-8 years ago, that was the stat then. The big stat that we hampered on was the fact that 50% of the people who have a college degree, their current job function or their current role does not align with their degree. Okay. A lot of times it may have been a degree where they didn't need a degree. It may have been a career path where they didn't need a degree. It could have been one where it was a completely different degree. So it just goes to show that stat right there is I would say it's one of the foundational purposes of laddering your success, right? It is better to know your purpose and to work where you're called than to just get a sheet of paper that says you're qualified in this role, right? So in our world, change demands nonstop personal adaptability. Think about this. 50% of the college graduates do not work in the field they spent 4 years studying. That means people who succeed are those who mastered a completely different level of knowledge. They figured out their how. They figured out the how. Grades open doors. Character keeps them open. But understanding the how, the underlying strategy of how industries evolve is what allows you to build your own doors when the old ones slam shut.
I want to go back to that bar real quick. To me, that was just a massive bar where you was like, what did you say? You just said something that was really powerful. Is that education opens doors, or it was an education open door?
Grades opens doors. Character keeps them open. But understanding the how, the underlying strategy of how industries evolve is what allows you to build your own doors when the old ones slam shut.
Yeah, and that's the reason why that's such a bar to me is now with the onset of AI and everybody's talking about it, which don't get me wrong, AI is a phenomenal tool, but it's just a tool. And it's kind of, if you like history, you watch history, and they talk about the gold rush to San Francisco. Everybody running to California. We're gold rushing California. Everybody running to California. And it's who becomes the arbitrator of success. And they're like, the people who really made the money were the people who sold the shovels, right? Because you needed to buy that shovel to get the gold, and you might not hit the gold. I think this is the same thing right now in regard to AI education, things like that. But go ahead, man. Continue, please.
Man, that's powerful. Absolutely, man. Great point. Thank you. So I want you to drop what you're doing right now for a second. Think about the skill you are best at right now. Is it a skill that can be easily replaced by an automation prompt, or is it an irreplaceable human asset? If it's the former, you need a strategy shift today, meaning if it's something that can be replaced by an AI prompt, by an automation prompt, you need to start figuring out a strategy shift today, right? So, question for the squad. What is the number one high income skill that students overlook during the summer because it doesn't show up on an academic syllabus?
Let me tackle real quick. I'll pass it to Jamar. I think reflection, personal reflection, is probably one of the most underrated skills that I've seen that people are even missing today. Adults are missing it. To be able to pause, to take a break, to think about your action and your activity. What was the cause and effects of your action and activity, your motivations behind your actions and activity, and to make a different choice mentally, emotionally, spiritually. I think that's one of the hugest underrated skills. But Crawford, what you think?
I think Crawford's having some internet issues, but I'll jump in on that. I think adaptability. I think problem solving. I think, to be very honest with you, I said two things. I'm going to give one thing. And Festus, I think you'll understand this a lot. We mentioned before AI, it was web. It was is this Web 2.0 that we're currently in?
Yeah, right now they're talking about Web 3.0. Yeah.
Okay. Before we had Google, right? And one of the fears that comes with this AI is a lot of people will be too self-reliant on it, right? But basically have it run their whole lives. One of the most important things I think my parents wanted me to have growing up was common sense. And I know that's what? Common sense? Duh, everybody has common sense. It's not as common as you think, right? It's not as common as you think.
Used to run around. Common sense isn't common. Yeah.
It's not. And I think that's the one thing I think young people especially need to have. You need to have common sense. Is probably one of the best, we've been so fortunate. One of the best podcast episodes we've ever had was with Dr. Bola Oyeleye. And she said something that was so powerful. For those of you who don't know, she's a JD, she's a lawyer. She is I believe, is it a doctorate in nursing, Festus?
Correct.
Doctorate in nursing, and she has a master's in teaching. And in her life, every step she's taken, she's asked herself one question. And that question was, what is the next logical step I should take? You don't get to those levels, you don't get in those rooms, you don't get in those doors, you don't get those opportunities, you don't develop that character if you don't have common sense. Things, I think young people would be so surprised if they understood how simple things like please, thank you, holding the door for someone, helping someone out, respecting your elders. I think you all would be so surprised how far that will get you, and how far that people will favor you if you're able to do those things. And I think there's a correlation there, Festus, correct me if I'm wrong, between the common sense and being able to problem solve and critically think. There's a major connection in there. And that's the thing that a lot of our parents are doing. They're planting that seed. When they say common sense, it's okay. You're in a situation where you're not around your parents and it's okay. This is something I feel like mom and dad would yell at me about. What would be the right thing to do? That's the common sense thing you're looking for. I think that goes and that benefits young people so much more. So that would be my thing for them. All right. And so, go ahead. Sorry, Festus. Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, again, that common sense factor is huge.
Yeah, definitely. So let's talk about the do, all right? We talked about who you are. We talked about where are my resources, the how, the no. Let's talk about doing. Research from the BLS, that's called the BLS, this is the Bureau of Labor Statistics, shows that students who engage in self-directed learning projects or structured internships over summer breaks experience 22% faster wage growth in their initial post-graduation roles. So let's talk about a quote. John Dewey noted, the goal of education is to enable individuals to continue their education. Let me say that one more time. The goal of education is to enable individuals to continue their education. Real world execution is a cold environment, young men, young women. In the classroom, you are given checks for understanding. They give you rubrics. They give you explicit guidelines that you must follow. In real life, no one's going to give you an assignment sheet. Nobody's going to give you a rubric, right? You must take ownership of your learning processes right now. This summer, the single skill that pays off later is not going to be coding. It's not going to be graphic design. It's not going to be financial modeling. You can learn that whenever you need to learn that. It's going to be strategic self-regulation and execution. Professor, that was a great point you made about just being able to reflect, right? It's the discipline to build a project, locate a mentor, and learn from iterative failures without a teacher grading your progress. So let's run a segment here, pressure versus purpose. If you're pursuing your current summer goals because of parental pressure, just comment a P wherever you're listening to this or watching this. If you're doing it because of personal alignment and clear career purpose, comment U. We want to see where the community stands. So for the final question, how can a student build an accountability loop for their summer projects when they no longer have deadlines or class schedules keeping them on track?
I think the biggest thing is, again, having a personal plan for success. And wherever you find yourself having a gap, that's where you need to develop the personal plan for success. Meaning, there's only really 3 gaps, either a B gap, a no gap, or a do gap. So either who I am and what I want out of life is not very clear, right? My purpose, my identity is not very clear, which is a B gap, or I have a no gap. And the no gap is either I don't know the people in that field or in that circle to help support me. I don't know the information well enough to contribute meaningfully, right? I don't know where the clubs are and where the things are, the associations for me to be a part of. And then lastly, it's a doing gap. What's my level of execution? Did I fail to plan? Because they say if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Did I fail to have a process that's repeatable, right? Because that's the whole point of showing your work, is that can somebody else repeat your process and come up with a similar outcome, right? Or did I plan to execute with excellence, meaning give my best when I took my opportunity? And so those become the challenges that I think students and families face.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. I think for me, what I would have a student do is I can build these very big ideas where I'll say things like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Keep it very simple. Festus, I love what you said. Find out where you're short. Find out where you are limited. Find out where you are weak. Find those areas that need extra work, that need extra development. 1 to 2, no more than 3 things you want to develop over the summer. And you can either have a parent, you can have a guardian, aunt, uncle, someone older, someone at the same level that you trust. Give that to them and say, I want you to hold me accountable to make sure that I'm able to get this done. I think that's very powerful, especially as you start to find your tribe, right? Shout out to Seth Godin. I know Festus loved that tribe, and he put me on that tribe. It's an amazing book. It's a great book. That's how you're going to start to build your tribe. I used to tell my students, how do I know I have a good friend? And I used to tell my students, I used to make them do this test. I would say, I want you to tell that person that you're looking to see if they're a good friend, I want you to tell them that you like a person. It doesn't have to be a person that you like. Just tell them you have a crush on this person and see if that gets out there. If you find out in a couple of days that, oh yeah, I heard you have a crush on this person. It's like, who told you that? You know where it came from, right? You know that's someone you can trust, right? So start to find your tribe. And anyone, as you're on this path of growth, if you come across people who are like, man, that's dumb. What you trying to do, bro? What? I got to do this? No, man, I ain't doing this. I'm trying to holler at chicks. I'm doing this, trying to do that. It's like, all right, I get it. Me too. But I'm also trying to grow in these levels, right? And that's how you start to make those, you start to figure out who is in your tribe. But just no more than 3. Find those things that you're deficient in. That's what I've been looking for, deficient, and start to grow in those things, okay? So if you're a purpose builder who refuses to let standard institutional systems dictate your ceiling, smash the subscribe button. We release tactical guidance every single week, all right? So this has been the latest episode of Edu Steps for Students, powered by Laddering Your Success. If you like what you heard, comment. If you disagree with something that we said, comment and put why. Help us think about this. Help us change our perspectives, right? Thank you again for listening. Make sure you like and subscribe. My name is Ole Sharanki, or Festus Samoye. Thank you for joining us on this latest episode. Festus, hit us with the phrase that pays, my good sir.
So listen up, y'all. There are legitimate excuses for not going to college. There's no legitimate excuse for not getting an education. Thank you for watching this episode of Edu Steps, powered by Laddering Success, and we will see you on the next episode.